Jonathan Eigen. This is my beautiful office. It used to be a laundry room. It used to be washer dryer right here. And I worked over there. You can show them that was the desk was over there, and I had my back against the dryer. But I've been in here so long, we finally turned it into a proper office, which I'm very happy about. And I'll show you around a little bit, and then I'll talk to you about a new book I have coming out in the fall. I'm working on a Muhammad Ali biography right now. No, wait a second. I did that already. I'm working on a Martin Luther King Jr. biography. So if you see here, these are all MLK books. One shelf of Ali, then more shelves of MLK. I've got my bobblehead collection over here. Come closer so you can see my bobblehead collection. I've got Jackie Robinson. I couldn't find a Muhammad Ali bobblehead. If one of my lovely readers wants to send me one, that'd be great. But I have some Ali, I have some Gehrig. I have a Gehrig bobblehead over here. I have a Capone bobblehead, 2 Capone bobbleheads. There's a Jonathan Eigen bobblehead down there. Can you see that? It's unbelievable likeness, except that I'm not a lefty. I don't hit left-handed. But a friend made that for me, and it's one of my prized possessions. First paragraphs, one of my secret weapons. I use that book all the time to get ideas. Over here, we've got me interviewing Harold Washington back in college. I was already losing my hair. Very sad. Here's a picture of Ali that my friend Lowell Riley took back in the 60s. Lou Gehrig with Frank Sinatra and Gehrig's doctor by his side. This is my grandfather, who was a foreman in a brassiere factory, and those are all the brassiere factory employees back in 1937. Bob Dylan, more Ali. So here are all the papers of Martin Luther King, and this is a shell from a missile that I found on the street in Bosnia when I was covering the war there. This is a little medal that my grandfather got for playing basketball at the YMCA in 1917. Same grandfather who's went on to work at the bra factory. You'll see my little trio of Martin Luther King busts. I'm also working on finding an MLK bobblehead, but you can't get the bobblehead until you finish the book. That's one of my rules. I have a book coming out in the fall, so it's fun because I'm working on this big 4,000 page Martin Luther King biography, and I also have this beautiful 80 page, 90 page children's book coming out, my first children's book. And if you don't mind, I'll read you a little bit, and then I'll be done, and you can get out of my office. It's called Some Pigtails, and the first chapter begins like this. It's a tribute, in a way, to Charlotte's Web, some pig, some pigtails. And the first line is very similar, not copied, but very similar to the first line of Charlotte's Web. "Where are you going with that brush?" Lola's mother asked her one Monday morning before school. "Downstairs to see Grandpa," said Lola, who was 8.5. She had a pink plastic hairbrush and a bag of elastic bands in one hand and her favorite book, Charlotte's Web, in the other. "Why are you bringing a brush?" her mother asked. "Well," Lola said, "you're too busy to do pigtails today, and I can't do them myself, so I'm going to ask Grandpa." Lola's mother put a peanut butter and banana sandwich in a brown bag. "Grandpa doesn't get up this early, Lola, you know that. Also, I don't think he knows how to make pigtails." "He might," Lola said, and she sang a song as she skipped out the door of her apartment and down a flight of stairs to the first floor of her building. That's where her grandfather lived. Lola opened the door with a key she wore on a string around her neck and went in. Grandpa Ed had an art studio in the front of his apartment and a bedroom and kitchen at the back. Grandpa's apartment smelled of smoke and ink and glue and paint and coffee and Grandpa. Lola was dressed neatly in her school uniform, a white shirt with a blue skirt, but her brown hair was a tangled mess. She went into Grandpa's bedroom. "Knock, knock," Lola said, because she knew her grandfather liked knock-knock jokes. "Nobody's home," Grandpa Ed said from under a pile of blankets in bed. "You're supposed to say, 'Who's there?'" Lola said. "Who's there is only for people who arrive at a civilized hour," came Grandpa's voice from beneath the covers. "Come back at noon and we'll find out who's there." "But I need you, Grandpa," Lola said. "I really, really need you." "Get lost, kid." "But I have a surprise for you," Lola said. "Get up, Grandpa." "A surprise? You've got nothing I want. No money, no beer, no White Sox tickets." I'll read you Charlotte's Web, Lola said, holding up her book. No thanks, Grandpa said. Any other ideas? Not yet, but I'm sure I'll think of something, Lola said. She stood there by Grandpa Ed's bed, rubbing her chin as she thought. Then Lola tossed her book on the bed and jumped on top of her grandfather's mountain of a back. She threw her arms around him and said, Come on, wake up, Grandpa. Hey, you're heavy, he said. Lola jumped off the mountain, her sneakers landing on a red plastic cup that made a cracking noise. Now get up, she said. My whole day depends on an important job I have for you. Grandpa Ed stuck his head out from under the covers and raised a fuzzy eyebrow. He looked at his granddaughter's smile with its missing tooth on top and dimpled cheeks and almost smiled too. This better be good, he said as he moaned and pushed up from his bed. Lola held out her pink hairbrush and the plastic bag full of colored elastic bands. Can you make pigtails, she asked. Grandpa Ed sighed. He wore a white sleeveless t-shirt and Mickey Mouse pajama bottoms. His head was bald on top, but he had white hair on the sides of his head and a thick white mustache and beard. His arms were covered with tattoos, including a big one on his left bicep that read, Whatever Lola Wants. Do I look like a guy who makes pigtails? Grandpa Ed scratched both armpits at the same time and then sniffed his fingertips. What's a pigtail anyway? He asked. Grandpa, you know. Why would I ask if I knew? Anyway, make me some coffee or get on your way to school. Lola loved making coffee. She put a scoop of beans in a grinder and poured water into Grandpa Ed's electric kettle. Your feet smell, Grandpa, she said. I thought my nose smelled, he answered with a shrug. Lola laughed. You're good at jokes, Grandpa, she said, and you could be good at pigtails, too. You could be really good. Didn't you tell me you learned to tie fancy knots when you were in the Navy? Whatever, can you make a fancy knot or not? Yeah. Plus, you're an artist, and that means you like colors, and look how many colors of elastic bands I have. Lola pointed to the bag of elastic bands on Grandpa Ed's night table. She went back to making coffee. Lola put coffee grinds in a paper cone, put the cone over a cup, and poured water into the cone. She turned water to coffee like magic. Here, she said, handing her grandfather the hairbrush and the big bag of brightly colored elastic bands. While the coffee's dripping, part my hair and put each side in an elastic band. Twist the band around the hair until it's tight. It's simple. Why didn't you say so? I could have finished this conversation a long time ago and gone back to sleep. But then we wouldn't have had all this fun, Lola said. Grandpa Ed took a big breath in and out, but he didn't speak. He took the brush in one hand and a handful of elastic bands in the other. While he worked, Lola silently read Charlotte's Web. Maybe she could have a pet pig someday, and a pet spider too. Several minutes later, Grandpa Ed was done. There, he said, best I could do. Lola closed her book, picked up the coffee cup, handed it to her grandpa, kissed his cheek, and skipped out of the room. Don't you want to look at my work? Grandpa Ed called after her. There's a mirror in the bathroom. No thanks, Lola said. I trust you. Anyway, it's late. I have to go. See you after school, Grandpa. Love you. Grandpa Ed lifted his coffee cup to his lips and took a slurpy sip. Lola went back upstairs to her apartment. As she walked in, her mother came from the kitchen holding a waffle and a backpack. Let's go, sweetie, she said. Do you like my pigtails, Mom? Lola asked. Uh-huh, they're adorable, her mother said without looking. Lola knew her mother was a little nervous because it was her first day on a new job. Lola's mother used to be a police officer, but now she was one of the people who told other police officers what to do. She was a supervisor. Even though the title had the word super in it, Lola thought the new job sounded boring. Driving around in a police car was much more fun than sitting at a desk. Lola and her mother held hands as they walked. When they got to school, Lola kissed her mother goodbye. Mom made a funny face when she finally looked at Lola's hair, but didn't say anything. Lola's friends, Maya and Faith, ran to greet her. Whoa, said Maya. Whoa, whoa, said Faith. Both girls giggled. What? Asked Lola. What happened to your hair? Maya and Faith asked at the same time. Lola put one hand on each of her pigtails. I need a mirror, she said. Lola ran into the school building as fast as she could and slipped into the nearest girls' room. She rushed to the sinks, looked up, and froze. There, staring back at her in the mirror, was Lola, eyes wide open, mouth making an O, with two pigtails sticking out as straight and stiff as the handlebars on a bicycle. Both were wrapped so heavily in red, white, and blue rubber bands that only the tips of Lola's brown hair poked out from the ends. A smile crept across Lola's face. Whoa, 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 she said as Maya and Faith stood there grinning. Cool. And there's a little picture of it. So, that's some pigtails. Thanks for joining me in my office, and please, please continue to support your independent bookstores. It's important, and I appreciate them and I appreciate you. Thanks.